Story 1. It's usually closer to 40, but they say what triggers a midlife crisis is realizing you are transitioning into the role of caretaker for your parents as they become less capable and lose the role of protector and provider. At the same time, watching your children become more capable and less dependent creates a strange, unavoidable introspection about aging and nostalgia for youth. Story 2. Just remember that getting older is a privilege. Enjoy the time. I lost my mother when I was 21. Story 3. Spend quality time together. Make memories, and say the things that need to be said. Express gratitude for the past, take care of them, and help them the way they helped you when you were young, if you had parents who were worth a damn, of course. Story 4. I have come to see death as an inevitable and natural part of life, and when the time comes I will be sad, but it will not ruin me. I will mourn my loved ones with gratitude for the time we had, because none of it is guaranteed. I love my parents. I am incredibly close to my mom and dad. I hope they are around for many more years and that when death finally comes it is not in the form of a horrible, drawn-out illness. In my younger years, I went through a phase where I was crippled by fear of mortality for myself and everyone I love. Part of getting myself out of that mess was accepting things as they are and a lot of therapy. Story 5. My mother passed away when I was young, and I despise my father. I will tip my hat to the Grim Reaper when he is done. Story 6. I just try to focus on the time we do have together, the little moments, calls, and visits, instead of worrying too much about what's coming. Staying in touch, helping when I can, and making memories really help with the anxiety. Story 7. Rather than feeling sad that they are getting older, try to see it from their perspective. What makes them happy is knowing you are fulfilled, have a family, and live life fully. In their final days, they will take comfort in knowing you will manage well without them and that they raised you to be a capable, independent adult. Story 8. There is definitely a role reversal where I worry about their well-being just like they used to worry about mine. I try to make time to see them and to make sure they are not getting into anything risky. They never take my advice, but I give it anyway. It is kind of like having young adult children. I cannot control them. I can only encourage them. Story 9. I guess I am a little thankful that I am not close with my parents and do not have to worry about it. Story 10. My parents are pretty evil, so I assume they will live to be 120 years old. They will have a long life. I do not worry about it. Story 11. I moved my dad into my house to care for him as he grows older. We had not lived together for almost 30 years because my parents divorced when I was young. I had always wanted to live with him, but now that I do I see why the divorce happened. He remains a miserable person who communicates only about the things he dislikes, and he is a master gaslighter. He does not remember things well anymore, so I am the only one suffering for it. Story 12. By burying those feelings and pretending I will never have to deal with them, I am not handling things in a healthy way. I especially worry that I do not know any of my dad's friends' names or contact information. He is a wonderful person, and the idea of holding a funeral for him that almost no one attends because we have little family left and I cannot reach his friends is terrible. I should probably ask him about this, but that would require discussing a topic I really do not want to acknowledge, so I fall back into unhealthy denial. Story 13. I am trying to be grateful for the time we still have together and for the independence they have while it is still there, and to keep my focus on the present versus the future. Story 14. One pragmatic perspective is that it is easier when parents die while you are young. I lost my dad at 21 and my mom at 29. Two small insights I found online that I wish would have shaped my relationships with them if they were still alive. By age 18, you have already spent about 90% of the time you will spend with your parents. Everything after that should count. Do not think about the time you have with them in years. For example, if you visit your parents 3 times a year and think they have 20 years left, that is not 20 years. It is 60 visits. Use those visits wisely. Story 15. I became a nurse so I would know how to care for my parents and navigate the healthcare system. When I was 28, I experienced a sudden, traumatic loss that turned my world upside down and made me realize something could happen to the people I love at any moment. It forced me to face my parents growing older. I sat my mother down and asked if she had plans for long-term care as she ages and whether I should plan to move home. I have told my fiancé that when I notice my parents' cognitive function declining to the point that they need my help, I want to move closer. My parents have given me the tools and resources I needed to become a well-adjusted, successful adult, and they deserve all the help I can give when that time comes. Story 16. Realizing that their passing is inevitable allows you to enjoy the time you have now. Acceptance helps a great deal. Story 17. Balance it with the fear of passing away while my children are still young. Story 18. I know that as soon as they are gone, I will be 100% on my own. I live alone now and have a job. Socially, I hang out with them all the time. I don't have any friends my age, and I know that's my fault. Story 19. I go to the gym to take better care of myself. Many of the problems my parents faced could have been avoided with a healthy diet and regular exercise. Story 20. Be nice. Visit and call often. If you have children, get the grandparents involved. Ask about their lives growing up and for their advice. Play their music. When they are gone, you will have many memories and few regrets. Story 21. I'll be honest. I panic occasionally about the number of funerals in my future. I come from a very large extended family who are getting up there in age and, miraculously, have lived long lives. At my first uncle's funeral, I got so drunk I threw up. I don't know how I'll handle my parents dying. I probably will not cope well. That being said, we talk about my parents' will and arrangements occasionally, so I won't be completely taken by surprise. I'll have my brothers to lean on, which is comforting. Story 22. No matter the reason, spend as much time with them as possible. If they tell a story you have heard before, appreciate it. You will miss it one day. Show them you will be okay and that they have made a positive impact on the world. Story 23. A few years ago, I worried about this. My solution was simple. When you see them, tell them that you love them and give them both a big hug. Treat each visit as if it were the last so they know how much they mean to you and you will not later wish you had said more. Story 24. It is not an easy topic. The best approach is to think about them, take action to help, and spend more time together. Story 25. I am a good son to my parents and have a healthy relationship with them. Be a good person to others. That is already half the meaning of life. Story 26. Honestly, it's tough. I am in my 30s and am starting to really notice my parents are aging. It hits me sometimes out of nowhere. What helps is being more present, calling more, asking questions, and making memories while I can. The worry does not go away, but focusing on the time we still have makes it a little easier to carry. Talking to friends who are going through the same thing helps too. Story 27. They will always live on through you and the values you carry. Beyond that, it's pointless not to try to accept mortality with grace. It's happening regardless, but our perspective about it is the only say we have. There will be a moment to mourn once the time comes, but why bring that into the present while they are here? Story 28. Well, I don't because I do not care enough to worry or be sad. That seems slightly sad for a relationship that never was. If I were in your shoes, I would be grateful that the relationship is strong enough that you feel sadness as they age. Story 29. I always help them in any way possible. I hug them, joke with them, go out with them, and talk about life. I spend quality time with them, knowing they have limited time left. My dad turns 60 this year, and my mother is 55. I try not to think about their last day. The present is what matters now. Story 30. I am about to turn 40, and my grandparents are 90 and 98. They are my people. Every time I see them, I remember it might be the last time, so I make sure they know I love them. If I want to tell them or show them something specific, I do it rather than saying, I'll mention it next time. It is different from your situation, but that is how I handle having older relatives. Story 31. I hate both of them. They are dying alone. I will urinate on their graves and then move on with my life. There is no sadness or worry. If I could hasten their dirt nap in some legal way, I would. Story 32. I don't get to see my dad get old, so I make the most of my time with my mom. When my dad got sick, I promised myself that anything he asked me to do I would say yes, because I never knew when it might be the last time he could do it. Now, as I see my mum aging, I try to apply that same principle and am having some wonderful moments with her as a result. Story 33. It's hard to take care of your parents, but it's worth it. My dad took care of me, and now it's my turn to take care of him. I wouldn't change it for the world. Story 34. My parents were older, so I worried my entire life about them dying. I would tell my mother that I was afraid. It hurt so much I could not bear it. She would say that I would be given the strength I needed, not before, but when I needed it. They have both since died, and that statement proved to be absolutely true. Story 35. I avoided this feeling with one weird trick. They both died of pancreatic cancer before they turned 70. When it comes to how to deal with that, I honestly struggle. What is hardest for me is the finality, that there is absolutely nothing that can change anything. It is such a helpless feeling. A quote from Alan Bennett's Lady of Letters resonates with me. Sometimes I catch myself thinking it'll be better the second time around. But this is it. This has been my go. Sometimes I tell myself, you'll talk to them when we get together again at Thanksgiving. But that is not how it works. There is no second time around, no chance to revisit the past, only their ending and, eventually, your own. All you can do is live your life the best you can. Story 36. I am in my 60s. My parents are still alive. I cannot take care of them financially. Story 37. In some families, you might only go home over Thanksgiving and Christmas, so you might only see your parents for 10 days of the year. Perhaps your parents are 70 now and likely to die at 80. The time until they die is not a decade. You do not have all the time in the world with them. You may only have 100 days left with them. The end of the Wait But Why article, The Tail End, discusses this well, and it really bothered me. It means maximize the time you have with them and make good memories, because when it is calculated in actual hours left, it is not much. Story 38. Don't worry. When you are in your 50s and your parents are in their 80s, every time you say goodbye you will wonder if it is the last time you will ever see them, and then you will know what sadness and worry really are. Story 39. With glee, they are getting off easy for what they truly deserve. Story 40. I have no control over it, and I can barely take care of myself. I am sorry. Story 41. It's tough. I remind myself that it's part of life, and I stay connected. Story 42. I do my best to create good memories and make every birthday extra special. Taking her out and keeping her active also helps. My biggest fear is feeling that I wasted the valuable time I had or that I did not do enough. I am sure I will still feel that way regardless, but at least I am trying. Story 43. I am just getting to the point where I need to start navigating this. My father recently had knee replacement surgery, and my mother was recently diagnosed with glaucoma. Life is strange and frightening. Story 44. I am 44 years old. My mother died a while back. She was a very cruel and mentally ill woman, and both my biological father and my adoptive father abandoned me to her. I endured some really horrible things and had a stunted start to life. They did not care. I have seen my biological father once in my life, and I saw my adoptive father 31 years ago when he drove off and left me living in a tent. I do not care when or how they die. Story 45. The alternative is that they never get old. It is hard either way, but it is definitely a lot easier when you are stable in your adult life rather than still a child. The choice is either to help the people you love through death or to die and leave them. It is a difficult part of life. It is a privilege to care for someone at the end of their life, and it is a wonderful way to show and feel love. Story 46. It is one of the hardest, saddest things to experience. My mom died 4 months ago. She became very sick, and I had to watch her deteriorate. It was horrible. Now I have to see my dad alone, and I am noticing more things like his hands shake and he is not as steady on his feet. Every time I start to get sad or worried, I tell myself there will be a time to be sad and a time to worry, but I am not there yet. Right now my dad is still here and he is okay. I am okay. I thank God for my dad. Story 47. I appreciate every moment with them. I go out of my way to plan activities and invite them. I host holidays so they can come and relax. I do not think about the end. I focus on the present and how I want to live it with them. Story 48. Oh my goodness. I went through this for a while, and it still hits me sometimes really hard. Cherish every moment and memory. This reminds me that I need to call my dad more often. Story 49. I have accepted that it will happen. Instead of worrying about when, I will enjoy the time I spend with my parents. Story 50. Please hug them and listen to them. Let them ask you annoying questions and answer them until they are satisfied. Soak in every moment. Story 51. Hello. I moved back closer to my parents because my father was having some health problems and was not in good shape. Although I could not spend as much time with him as I wanted, as I lived 4.5 hours away, the time I did spend with him was meaningful. I knew his time was limited, and every time we were together, I made peace with the possibility that it could be the last time. I hugged him like I meant it and told him I loved him as often as I could. Eventually, I received the call that he had a massive stroke. Moral of the story: make your moments count and understand that we are all living on borrowed time. Story 52. My dad died when I was a young teen. I have hardly spoken to my mom in 5 years because she treats everyone around her badly except my ex and her children. There is unresolved trauma, and it will be hard. Still, it is easier than what many others experience. I will grieve the relationship I never had with my parents. Story 53. I'm 40. I almost break into tears just thinking about it, so I don't. Story 54. I tell myself I'm thankful they have been in my life for so long. Story 55. My family was sexually, verbally, emotionally, and physically abusive. I wish them the life and eternities they deserve. If they had not been that way, I would have enjoyed my time with them and made as many good memories as possible. We do not live forever, so we should make the best of our time here. Worrying about things outside your control only takes energy away from the good things. Story 56. No sugarcoating. It gets worse. Then she passed. I left home in my 20s and always worried about her. I had no idea how alone she would be in old age. I carry crushing guilt despite my mother always pushing me away, urging me to find myself in my life, like a bird pushing its young from the nest. Her later years were desperately lonely despite my frequent annual visits. Story 57. Embrace it as a privilege. Their stories shaped you. Now yours can comfort them. I call weekly with no agenda and ask, what's one good thing this week? Turns worry into connection. Write down their wisdom, such as recipes and advice, for your children. Therapy is not weakness. It is armor. You are not losing them, you are gaining depth. Allow space for the ache, but let gratitude lead. You can do this. Story 58. My parents just turned 70, and I have started secretly recording our casual conversations. Sometimes I listen to them when I miss their voices. Aging is hard, but preserving little moments makes it feel less scary. Story 59. I keep thinking they will probably live into their 90s. There is plenty of time. I would rather be surprised by their death than dread it forever. Story 60. I am not in contact with my parents, and they have been essentially dead to me for a while. I have already made peace with that. Story 61. My mother is 88 and I am 47. My father died a couple of years ago, but he had been in declining health for many years before that. When I was in my 20s, I honestly thought both parents would be dead around age 75, so I feel lucky that I have had so much more time with them than I expected. Story 62. Whenever I see a pretty arrangement of flowers, I buy it for my grandmother. Everyone waits until someone dies to buy flowers. It is such a simple gesture that means a lot and nurtures the connection you have. Living a long life into old age is a gift. Story 63. Call them often. Pick up when they call. Respond to their text messages. Listen to their stories. Help them with tasks. Accept their help. Make the most of the time you have. Story 64. At first I noticed my father could no longer do the physical things he once did. A little later, his mental faculties began to decline. This lasted about 10 years. When he finally passed, I felt almost relieved because he had changed so much from the man he had been. I missed him dearly, and I still do. I would give anything to talk with him for a day. Now I am approaching the age when his decline began, and I am noticing physical limitations and slower mental processes in myself. Aging is difficult. Story 65. Therapy helped a lot. I realized the sadness comes from love. It is proof of how much they mean to me. Now, when that ache shows up, I try to sit with it instead of fighting it. I remind myself they are still here. Go call them. Story 66. I remember how close we are to the singularity and artificial intelligence-driven scientific discoveries. Story 67. Save a ton of money, enough to go around. Good luck. Story 68. I've made peace with the fact that aging and loss are part of the deal. My job now is to show up, call more, visit more, ask questions about their lives, and learn the recipes. That's how I handle the worry, by turning it into presence. Story 69. It is very sad and somewhat terrifying. My dad is 70 and my mom is 68. My mom stays physically active, but my dad does not. He walks the dog in the morning, but that is about the extent of his activity. My dad was always the strongest man in the world to me. Having to help him put together furniture or repair things is hard. I have to accept that this is the cycle of life and that it is my turn to help him. He has more trouble accepting this than I do. I worry about both of their minds, but especially my mom's. She is showing signs of early dementia. I am not opposed to placing my parents in a care home if that is where they can receive the highest level of care. I will choose a good facility and move nearby so I can visit them every day. I will keep them at home as long as I can, but I will not let pride or ego keep them from getting the best treatment possible. Story 70. I like to look at it a different way. My mom passed at 93, and the last 5 years were a challenge for us both, as I was responsible for her medical care. Even so, we focused on the privilege. It really is that to grow old is to see and experience so much, for example, grandchildren or great-grandchildren. Let's be grateful for our parents growing older. Story 71. Unfortunately, all of my parental figures are dead. Enjoy the time you have with them. There is nothing you can do to reverse time, so make the most of it. Don't sulk and waste it. Story 72. I try to force my mother to do what is best for her health, and it makes us both miserable. Story 73. I am 58. My mother died last year. My father turned 91 this year. It is just life. Story 74. Nothing takes away that sadness like a big hug from mom and dad. Story 75. I went through a myotrophic lateral sclerosis with my mom. She passed on February 10, 2023, and stage 4 pancreatic cancer with my dad. He passed on October 10, 2024. Make the most of the time you have with them. Yes, they could be annoying, and I still curse when I notice my dad's mannerisms in me, but make the time count. Quality over quantity. Story 76. I'm not going to think about it for a while. My mom is 5 years younger than her mother was when she died. Story 77. My parents are not worried about it, so it does not bother me. Story 78. My father recently suffered a very serious heart attack, required heart valve replacement surgery, and spent 2 weeks in the intensive care unit. Fortunately, he is doing great, but it made me confront this in a very real way, and I was not, and am still not, ready for it. I had believed it would feel natural when the time came, or that I would be able to handle it, but I was not. Story 79. My father passed away when I was 25. It hurt then, and it still hurts 10 years later. I became his caretaker for the last 6 months of his life, and it was intense. It is something I would never wish on anyone, watching a parent wither away. Regardless of age, you never know when the time will come. For those on good terms with their parents, spend as much time with them as possible. Story 80. One of them has already died. My mom had me young, so she potentially still has a while. She is only 55. Story 81. Recently, I've been holding on to the sentiment that aging is a privilege. This can be about me or someone I love. I find peace of mind knowing my parents, who are already in their late 60s, have each, in their own way, been living life to the fullest. Story 82. I lost my mother suddenly when I was 27. I have always had anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and bipolar disorder, but that loss triggered extreme fears about my loved ones dying. I obsess about it and stress myself out. Hopefully my doctor will increase my medications at my next appointment so I can relax. I make a point to see my father at least once a week now, and I really cherish the time we have together. Story 83. I'm spending as much time as possible with them, making memories. We go to the Christmas market every year and we talk every day. I also eat as many home-cooked meals as I can. It's better than any fancy restaurant meal. Story 84. When they call, you answer the phone every time. You do not send it to voicemail, even if you are tired or busy. When you talk on the phone, you speak 5 to 10 minutes longer than usual, asking follow-up questions like what else is new. If you get irritated by something they say on a call or in conversation, you never hang up or leave without telling them you love them. Story 85. Spend quality time with them. There is nothing I can buy that my parents cannot afford or get for themselves, so making a meal for them is a nice gesture. Story 86. Death is just part of life. With any luck, you will see your parents continue to age, and along the way you will learn life lessons that inform how you want to live your later years. In the meantime, love them. Story 87. Both my mother and my mother-in-law became parents when they were teenagers, so when I think about them getting older, I think about us getting older. It feels different now because we are in our mid-30s and they are in their early to mid-50s, so we are in different life stages. We have a young child while they are becoming empty nesters. It is also strange because when my mother was my age, I was already in high school. Sometimes I think that when we turn 60, for example, they will not yet be 80. Story 88. I have lost both my parents, one to Alzheimer's and one to a heart condition. Honestly, reading about Buddhism and practicing mindfulness has changed my entire outlook. I have studied for 5 years or so. I feel very peaceful compared to how I used to feel and more accepting of impermanence, change, and loss. Story 89. I lost my mother in my late 30s, and it made me realize how little time we have together on this planet. I now work harder to spend more time with my father and stepmother and make sure my husband spends as much time as possible with his parents. Story 90. My dad died a long time ago. As for my mom, I just accept reality. We are all dying at different rates. Story 91. My parents are dead, so I guess I don't have to worry about that part. Story 92. One of them is already dead, so that problem solved itself. The other I try to spend time with when I can and make sure he has his affairs in order for when he dies. Story 93. My mom is dead, and my dad is on his way out any time now. I was more worried about them getting Alzheimer's and having to care for them while they slowly died and deteriorated mentally for many years. No one can afford to take care of their parents anymore. I miss my mom every day, but I'm glad she passed quickly. Story 94. I have not had contact with them in over 5 years and do not know whether they are alive or dead, so I do not think about it. Story 95. I hope she does not lose her money to a scam so that she cannot afford a nursing home. I will not subject myself to her full time. Story 96. I sit with my feelings until they don't feel so heavy anymore. Story 97. I am 57 and not worried about my parents. They golf twice a week, play tennis once a week, and play pickleball regularly. They are living their best lives. Be healthy, eat well, live your best life. Story 98. My dad died at 56 when I was 24. Now I am 38, and my mother is 70 and has Parkinson's disease. I have been her caretaker in addition to managing my normal life for the past 15 years. At this point, there is no use worrying. I am already dealing with the things I would otherwise worry about. The main sadness I feel is that I missed critical years for meeting people, figuring out who I am, and finding someone who wants to settle down and start a family. I still want those things, but it does not look promising. My sadness is for the life I gave up to be a good person. Story 99. I don't. They didn't want me and treated me that way. Now they will get the same treatment, especially since they defend their actions or shift the blame to my mental health, which I developed because of their genetics and how they treated me. I might feel sad or lost when it happens, but I cannot wait for it. Story 100. I lost my dad at 58 when I was 25, and now I am approaching his age. I no longer worry about my mother's death the same way. I was robbed of decades with my father that many of my friends had, and now many of them are losing their parents. Losing someone early made me realize any time you have with those who remain is precious. Story 101. Contemplate existence and accept death head-on. I have spent a lot of time in Indonesian traffic and made my peace with the afterlife many times. This guy overtaking 3 boulder-carrying trucks with almost zero safety measures in the opposing lane, heading straight at me, might not get back onto his side of the road. He could collide with me head-on, sending my wrecked Gojek driver's car and me off the side of this volcano into a 100-meter free fall and kill me. But I really want to go to this place that has the best nasi camper on the island. Story 102. This thread hits hard for me. I frequently tell my parents how much I appreciate everything they have done for me and how grateful I am to have been raised by them. Something you don't really understand or appreciate until you get older. Story 103. My parents had me later in life. I'm 35 and my dad is 72. Mom is active and healthy, but my dad, well, you can tell he's getting up there. The hardest thing for me is that I'm the only child who has stayed near them for the past 10 years. My full brother moved away about 8 years ago and is missing in action. My parents will also never admit they are getting older or that they need help. They still say things like, "You don't know what you're doing, we do." They also say, "You can't do that, Dad will help you." So even if they became seriously ill, they wouldn't tell me. I'm still very much a child in their eyes, and it really sucks. They are my everything. Losing them would be the hardest day of my life. Losing my mom would be unbearable. I don't think I would stay around. Story 104. I'm 58, still have my father, and recently lost my mother. I'm glad I didn't start worrying about it in my 30s. Story 105. I am trying to write down their memories and experiences, and my childhood bedtime stories. I am angry that I did not do this for my grandmothers, who died before I had the idea. One uncle had a stroke, and we are trying to collect his stories as well because he is very fragile. Story 106. My parents have distanced themselves so much. I do not have anything to miss. I worry about how they are mismanaging their health, and that it will fall on me to clean up the mess. Story 107. My heart breaks every time I am away from my aging father. Story 108. Personally, I know there is nothing I can do about that. The best you can do is make sure you allocate time for them when possible. I live in the same city as them, but since they are getting older, I consider how far my house is from their residence. I do not necessarily want to live right next to them, but I want to be close enough that it is not a long trip to visit a couple of times a month. My city is large enough that distance matters. Story 109. I'm not sure what you mean. My dad is going to live forever. Story 110. I had the good fortune of watching my father die when I was 21. He lay on the living room floor, having a heart attack and refusing the ambulance until he passed out and died. Now, 18 years later, I am okay with getting to see my mother age instead of watching her die in front of me. Story 111. I do not have to. They are already both dead, so I have no immediate family. Dad was 55 and Mom was 44 when they adopted me. I am in my late 30s. Story 112. Connect deeply, share stories, express love, and let them know they matter. These moments bring comfort. Story 113. It's part of life. Just as when my grandparents were getting old, my parents prepared for that. Now it's my turn. I will miss them, but one day they will be gone and my son will be in my position. Story 114. Try to be the best child they could ask for so that when they go you have no regrets. My dad lives with me, and I visit my mom every week to help around the house or simply to spend time together. You cannot change that one day they will be gone. You only have control over how you treat them in the meantime. Story 115. I lost my dad a few years ago. My mom lost her entire family of origin in the last 3 years. I have talked to my mom about her funeral arrangements, and that is enough to make me cry, so it is going to be rough. Story 116. Oof. Unfortunately, it's one of those facts of life. I think it is important to nurture the relationship you want to have with your parents. Make time for them, call them, and treat them like a friend. I am 32 and I lost my dad almost 2 years ago, and that was incredibly difficult to deal with. The one saving grace for me was knowing that I had a really good relationship with him. I always tried to make time for him and I called him regularly. Losing a parent is painful, but it would be even worse to live with the regret of things left unsaid. As hard as it is, I encourage you to have conversations with your parents about their wishes for their care and what should happen after they pass. Story 117. I am in my 50s. My mom is in her 80s. I know she will slow down at some point, but it has not happened yet. I recently asked whether she had thought about where she would want to live if her house becomes too much for her to maintain. Not assisted living, but a smaller place with less upkeep. My sisters are not willing to bring it up, and she would never admit on her own that it is time to move. By putting the topic out in the open, she will be more willing to revisit it when the time comes. Story 118. Age 35. It is easier for me to accept the inevitability. I helped my father care for his mother with dementia for a decade when I was in my teens and 20s. I have cared for my mother my whole life, and she is less capable now. My girlfriend's father died suddenly and horribly last year after I had been caring for him for 8 months. It will just happen, and the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can do something to help yourself. Waiting is almost as bad as doing nothing. The best time to start is today. There is no God. No one is coming to help you, and if you do not get things sorted, the end can be extremely painful for everyone. I am super traumatized by the past 5 years. Learn everything you can about Medicare, Medicaid, long-term care insurance, hospice, and how to care for a parent who is still at home. You can have both Medicaid and Medicare when you are eligible, and hospice is usually covered. Get your parents on long-term care insurance before they are 50. Story 119. My parents and I had a talk about their end-of-life wishes and what the surviving partner would want. We mapped out each parent's wishes and went over the finances, who would receive what and why. It was hard to discuss, but we all felt relieved and more secure being on the same page. We do not have a large family or much wealth, so the estate will be split fairly between my siblings and me, and they are included in all the discussions. Knowing my parents are aging is difficult, but we try to make the most of our time together, whether the moments are big or small. We take many more pictures and videos now. We record our visits and trips to make a home movie with no editing or cutting, just raw footage. That way my son and any future grandchildren will be able to see them even if they are no longer here. It is fun and I highly recommend it. Story 120. I remember they voted for Trump, and I hope they do not get to do it again. Story 121. Remember that you are lucky if they both grow old. Stop worrying. Make sure they know how much you love them. Story 122. I could always die first. Random things happen and we are all going to die someday. There is no use worrying about the unknown or about things you cannot change. Just enjoy what you have while you have it. Story 123. My father died when I was 17. My mother asked me to be the power of attorney when it is time to pull the plug, because nobody else in the family thinks they can do it. Watching her slowly slide into dementia is more depressing than the idea of her dying. Story 124. Spend time with them. Call them. Befriend them. When things go wrong, they will escalate quickly. Story 125. My mother died when I was 12 days old. I was raised by my grandparents who have both passed away, one in 2019 and one this year. Their deaths were devastating, and my grief now comes in spurts. My father never really got close to me, and I do not expect to mourn him deeply. I already mourned him while growing up without him. Story 126. I'm not worried or sad about them dying. My dad abused me and my mom enabled him. I want them gone so they can't harm me anymore. Story 127. I just lost my mom on October 5th, one day after her 93rd birthday. My father died in 1972. I honestly thought she would outlive me. Story 128. My dad died quite suddenly in 2021 when he was 64. I have so many wonderful memories with him, and I am grateful he taught me to enjoy life as much as I can. My mother has Parkinson's disease and several other physical conditions. My husband, daughter, and I are taking her on holiday next month. She walks very slowly and did not want to hold us back, but I told her there would be no rush. My plan is to keep making memories to help cope with the sadness of watching her age. Story 129. Value the time you have with them. Start recording conversations and asking meaningful questions. I write down their answers and plan to assemble a memorial package for my siblings and me when they pass. Story 130. I am in my mid-30s. On my mother's side, there are no worries. That side is healthy. She will probably be around 30 or more years. I still have grandparents on that side. My father, however, is a concern. Although he is not very old, he has many bad habits and does not take care of himself. Men in that family with those behaviors typically do not live past their 50s. It is a worry, but not something I think about often. I try to live in the present. Story 131. Treasure every day they are alive. There is plenty of time for grief afterward. Worrying solves nothing. Story 132. It was extremely stressful for a few years. Then both of them died by the time I was 45, leaving a total mess for us children. Now everyone is traumatized. Story 133. Well, as a 29-year-old orphan turning 30 next month, it is hard. I lost my mom at 20 and my dad earlier this year. It feels surreal. I need to stay constantly distracted so I do not overthink these losses. My biggest fear came true early in life, and I feel empty because of it. Never take a day for granted. And make sure the last words they hear are, "I love you." Story 134. I moved across the continent a decade ago. I hate my hometown and have only gone back once, at the very beginning. I have created a whole life here. Growing up was rough. My parents and I had volatile relationships in very different ways. Since moving, I have grown emotionally close to my mother. We talk every week, sometimes more, for a long time. She is getting older and her mobility is declining, but I do not have to deal with most of that. My sister is not so lucky. She and I are close, so I feel guilty watching the toll it takes on her. I have mixed feelings about it. I should go see my mother before it is too late, and my partner here wants to meet her. But part of me thinks I would not regret never seeing her in person again. I have her preserved as I remember her, before age limited the life she wanted to live. I remember walking and going to the beach with her before I moved away. Mentally, she is as sharp and sarcastic as ever, which feels strange, and I think about it a lot. Story 135. Looking forward to hearing more. I'm 40. My parents were teenagers when they had me and are still relatively young, healthy, and independent. I adopted my son in my 30s, so he is still at a young, fun age. He is most of my focus and a joy. I'm curious about the shift and what it will look like as we all get older. Story 136. As someone who lost my mother 2 years ago this Thursday, enjoy having your loved ones in your life while they are here. I am only 34 and wish I had been able to spend more time with her. Story 137. My parents have always had trouble taking care of themselves. I have kids, and my parents are not my responsibility. If they want a kitchen of rotten food and my dad's leg infection to cause him to lose his leg, I am done hearing about how I'm a bad son for being in a same-sex marriage. Story 138. I am 30 and my mum suddenly died a couple of months ago. My father died when I was young. She went from not exactly healthy but generally okay to developing a new health complication and then suddenly dying a few weeks later. There is nothing you can do to prepare for it, so do not worry about that part. You will have to cope with it and get through it. Regarding worrying about what might happen in the future, if you have a good relationship with them, prioritize maintaining that relationship as much as you can. If you do not have a good relationship, try to address what you can. Story 139. Mine died in my 20s. I would give anything to watch my parents grow old. Story 140. I will be sad when it happens, but my perspective is different because my brother was born with a terminal illness and died at 10. Story 141. I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States, call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Are you safe right now? Do you have a plan to harm yourself? I can help you find support or stay with you here. I would rather watch my parents die than have them watch me die. Story 142. My parents and grandparents are deceased. I was a caregiver for my mother for a short time after she was diagnosed with a grade 4 glioblastoma. She had no use of the left side of her body. She lived only 6 weeks after that. It was rough, but it is getting better. Story 143. I have no contact with anyone in my family. I am still fairly newly sober. I am glad I do not have to worry about either, but not having children was a deliberate choice. Family was not worth worrying about until I quit drinking and using drugs. It was just negative vibes, violence, hatred, and anxiety-inducing behavior in general. Now I am focused on myself and those close to me. I honestly do not care what happens to them. I started crying the other day right after waking up because my new friends are aging. I am 40, and many of my Alcoholics Anonymous friends are about my parents' age. I am crying again now. Story 144. Luckily, they were very cruel while growing up, so we never got close. Story 145. I cry, but I do not worry about it. My mother is a smoker, so I am fairly certain how she will pass. I know my father believes he will go to be with God. I cry because I am far away from my mother, and there is no amount of love I can show to change her negative self-talk. I cry for the relationship I wished I could have with my father, a relationship that will never exist. Still, I am at peace knowing that someday I will live a life without them, and I will be forever sad that they will not be on this plane with me. Story 146. If you are worried, do the practical things you can. Make sure they have a living will. If they own property, place it in a trust. Get copies of insurance policies, and discuss their wishes if their health declines and the kind of funeral they want. I also suggest talking about any pets they have and who will care for them, since people often forget that. Spend time with them. Both of my parents died unexpectedly. They were older, so it was not a complete shock, but both were at home a few years apart. They went to bed one night and did not wake up the next day. You never know when it will be the last time you see someone, so do not leave things unsaid. Know that you will be okay. It is a fundamental change in how you view yourself when you are no longer anyone's child. It was that way for me. Story 147. I'm 29, so I feel qualified to answer. You prepare mentally for the inevitable. You become the strongest and wisest version of yourself. When you must make a choice, you hear the voice of your mother or father telling you the right thing to do, and you do not act rebellious or immature. You simply do the right thing. There will come a time when they are no longer there, so you become a person who no longer needs them. I know it sounds brutal, but life is brutal for everyone. They would be happy not to be needed anymore. That would make them proud. It would mean they did their job. Story 148. I will breathe a sigh of relief when my mother dies. She is a plague on my life and actively sucks the life out of me every moment she draws breath. If the witchcraft from horror films were real, I have no doubt she would spend every waking moment attempting to switch bodies with my younger sister because she is that selfish and wants to be young instead of the fat, vindictive, miserable woman she is. Hell, she would probably switch bodies with me just so she could gloat. I spend one day a week in a group therapy setting for hours, surrounded by other disabled veterans who are decades older than me as they cry about the what-ifs or the shoulda-beens with their dead parents, and I am over here holding back my grief. My wife and I take care of her, although I have needed to take a hiatus because I am afraid I will snap. She claims she can take care of herself, although we clean up her literal excrement because she is so obese she can barely walk, let alone shower or use a normal toilet. Her house is infested with mice and rats, and I am not even sure how she is alive. We are too poor to hire a lawyer to get guardianship yet. When I close my eyes to sleep, I see the filth we have had to clean up and catch the phantom whiff of excrement and human stench as though it just breezed past my nose. She has outlived every member of her family, including her younger sister. She has not made a healthy life choice since the late 1970s. I can only surmise at this point she is cursed. I even rebuked her and told her God will not let her die until she helps her children. She did not find that funny, but I did. My father is all right. He is a husk of a man and so fucking autistic, but at least he takes care of himself. I am sad at the life he has lived, in large part because I see the potential he had coming out of college. I think death will be a kindness to them both. For me, when they pass, I will not have to stress or worry about something going wrong with them anymore. but that is probably just the trauma talking. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.